My name is Martha Whitmore. I was born in New Canaan, Connecticut, in a house where people noticed pearls more than people. I hadn't stepped inside the Whitmore estate for 8 years since the Christmas Eve I sat beside an untouched slice of cake while my brother's startup pitch got its third toast. No one noticed when I slipped out before dessert. But this year I came back. Not for closure, not even for answers. I came because silence had been mistaken for consent, and I wanted to correct that just once. Snow had started falling before I left the station. By the time I reached the top of Whitmore Hill, the street lamps were haloed with frost. The mansion loomed the same wreaths on every arched window, golden light pouring out like a promise it never kept. Inside, everything was curated. The hallway smelled faintly of eucalyptus and money. The music was soft piano, probably a live playlist labeled something like Modern Heritage. In the front parlor stood Evelyn Whitmore, my mother wrapped in silk, and hosting like royalty. She didn't hug me. "You made it," she said as if I were early to a meeting. Behind her was Richard, my father, a man who checked stocks between sips of bourbon and only looked up when the Dow dropped. He gave a small nod. Polite, disconnected. My sister Kathy drifted in from the dining room in a crimson dress and stilettos that clicked like punctuation. "Well," she said, eyeing my coat, "you're brave for traveling in this weather." And Brian, my older brother, the golden one, stood near the fireplace with a glass of scotch and the ease of someone who never had to ask twice for anything. No one asked why I came. No one offered to take my coat. Then I felt a tug at my sleeve. "Are you really Aunt Martha?" a girl's voice asked. She couldn't have been more than 8 with one loose braid and cautious eyes. "Yes," I said, kneeling down. "And you must be Lily." She nodded. "Mom says you work with computers." Something like that. She leaned in closer. "Do you build things?" I paused. "All the time." She smiled, then slipped away before anyone could notice she'd been talking to me at all. I followed the scent of roast duck and rosemary to the dining room. The table was cathedral long, draped in white linen place cards written in perfect cursive. I scanned them until I saw mine tucked not at the table but at the corner children's bench between 2 booster seats. I held the card a moment longer than I meant to. "Must have been a mix-up," I said aloud. "No mix-up," Evelyn said behind me, lifting a glass. "The main table's full." I counted 2 empty seats. "You've been gone a long time," Kathy added, brushing her napkin. "It's hard to keep track of preferences." I said nothing. Just walked to one of the empty chairs and sat down. Let the music keep playing. Let them all keep pretending. But the terms were different now. I arrived late on purpose. Not out of spite, just enough delay to ensure I wouldn't be early, wouldn't catch them still in their hushed, "Is she really coming?" huddles. The Whitmore house stood exactly as it had 5 winters ago. Not a wreath out of place. The porch light still flickered faintly in the snow-heavy air like it hadn't quite decided if it wanted to welcome or warn. No one came to the door. It wasn't locked, but I didn't expect it to be. This wasn't that kind of family, the kind that waits by windows or wraps you in blankets. A housekeeper I didn't recognize opened it and nodded silently, stepping aside like she'd been told to expect a delivery, not a daughter. Inside, the warmth struck me. Not soft warmth, not comfort, but heat set to impress. That kind of silent message whispered through expensive vents. "We are successful, we are whole, we are fine." Voices drifted from the formal living room. Laughter too polished to be spontaneous. The sound of glasses clinking like wind chimes arranged in key. I stepped into the doorway and paused. The room had barely changed. A 12-foot tree in the corner blinked like it was auditioning for a magazine spread. Garlands wound around banisters like silk snakes. The fireplace roared, and there, arranged like an old photograph, my family. Kathy was mid-story, one heel hooked over the rung of her chair, manicured hand-waving. Evelyn poured something pale into crystal. Richard nodded in his leather seat like a man conducting a board meeting. Brian was slouched near the fire, scrolling with the same thumb he used to sign debt he couldn't cover. No one noticed me for a moment. I didn't mind. Evelyn turned first. "Oh," she said, "you're here." No hug, no real smile. Just a slight widening of the eyes as if she'd remembered something she meant to defrost earlier that morning. "Hello, Mother," I said. I kept my coat on. Kathy rose in that slow, floaty way of hers. "Martha," she said, walking over like she was in a wedding aisle. "You look different. Thank you." That was the goal. I caught Brian's glance, quick, transactional. A nod you'd give someone holding the elevator. I returned it, matching his exact tone. Behind Kathy, a low table gleamed with gift boxes arranged by paper color. I counted them without needing to. Red Kathy, silver Lily, blue Brian. No gold. Of course not. "I'll put this over here," I said, placing a small box not wrapped no bow on the sideboard. No one asked what it was for. Richard spoke without looking up. "Long drive," I didn't answer. Not because it wasn't worth answering, but because I was watching Lily. She'd been sitting by the fireplace cross-legged with a half-wrapped present in her lap. When our eyes met, she blinked slowly. Then quietly she said, "I liked the book you sent me, The Girl Who Builds Things." I smiled. "She's my favorite too." She looked down like she wasn't sure if it was okay to say that out loud. "Dinner," Evelyn announced. She didn't say, "Let's eat." She just motioned like a stewardess pointing toward an exit. The dining room was as I remembered, long tables stretching like a runway, candles flickering in pre-approved unison place cards, hand-lettered in Evelyn's all-caps script. I looked down the row. There wasn't one for me. I waited a beat. "Looks like we're short a setting," I said. Evelyn didn't glance up. "We had to finalize seating yesterday. There's a folding chair at the end. You can sit there." There was no child's table, but the last seat unmarked was next to Lily's booster cushion. "I see," I said. I pulled out the folding chair and sat down, not beside it but in it, without asking. I let the scraping of metal on wood fill the room. A few heads turned. Brian didn't. Kathy smiled tightly. "It's good you're here, Martha." "Really?" "Is it?" I asked. And for a moment, no one responded. Dinner moved forward like a train on polished tracks, elegant, predetermined humming just loud enough to drown out anything real. Brian raised a glass halfway through the main course. "I just want to say, thank you," he began, voice thick with practiced humility. "This year's been rough, but having family behind me, well, it's meant more than you know." A few claps, a few nods. Evelyn dabbed the corner of her mouth like she'd been moved to the edge of tears. Richard lifted his wine glass without a word. Kathy beamed like a co-founder. "He's always had vision," Evelyn added softly, resting a hand on Brian's sleeve. "From the time he rewired that remote control car." I didn't say anything. The roast was dry. Kathy leaned toward me, lowering her voice just enough to sound exclusive. "It's really nice you're finally in a place where you can join us again. I know success hasn't always come easy." I met her eyes. "Did you want to rephrase that?" She blinked once. I meant it as a compliment. "I know." Her smile faltered. Across the table, Lily was quietly picking at her mashed potatoes, clearly more interested in the candied pecans tucked into her napkin. When she caught me looking, she mouthed the word boring and rolled her eyes. I nearly laughed. Dessert came out with Evelyn's usual fanfare pecan tart, perfectly cut like it had been pre-measured for a magazine spread. Whipped cream balanced like sculpture. Place cards had been gathered by then. I noticed mine wasn't among them. "Oh," Evelyn said when I asked. "I wasn't sure if you'd come. I didn't want to assume." "No harm done," I replied. "But I'm here now." Her smile thinned. "Yes. And we're glad." She didn't sound glad. She sounded like someone trying to remember the next line of a speech she hadn't rehearsed. Back in the living room, the gift exchange resumed. The rules hadn't changed. Red was Kathy. Blue, Brian. Silver for the kids. No gold. Brian unwrapped a leather briefcase embossed with his initials. Evelyn kissed his cheek. "We believe in you, sweetheart." I watched them. Quiet. Composed. The kind of stillness that comes not from peace, but from remembering how noise gets used against you. I hadn't brought anything for them. Not for this. Only one gift left unspoken, still sitting on the sideboard in its plain packaging. I looked down at Lily, who had wandered back to the floor. She clutched a ribbon and was twisting it into the shape of a star. She wasn't loud or asked to be seen, but she saw everything. After the gifts had been opened and the photo taking began, the kind with staged laughter and strategically held wine glasses, Richard motioned me toward the study. I followed past the hallway with framed diplomas past the grandfather clock still stuck 4 minutes slow. He closed the door behind us like we were stepping into something sacred. "I'll keep this brief," he said, adjusting his cufflinks. "Brian's been in talks with a few backers, but the timing's off. He's got a window, but it's narrow. A little liquidity could mean the difference between sinking and scaling." He paused like he expected me to be impressed by the phrasing. I waited. Evelyn entered before I could speak, holding a glass of white wine that hadn't lost a drop despite the hallway walk. "He's carried so much these last 2 years, Martha." "Truly. You've seen the way he's pushed through." I looked at her. "Did he tell you I paid for Dad's surgery 5 years ago?" The silence came fast, thick, like a door slammed inside a chapel. Evelyn blinked. "What are you talking about?" "I wired the payment. 42,000 direct to the hospital." "You thought it was Brian. He let you." Richard stiffened his jaw, twitching once. "You never said anything." "I wasn't asked." Kathy's voice came from the hallway. She'd been standing just out of sight. "So now you're here to collect on old favors. That's rich." I stepped past my father and opened the door fully. Kathy didn't flinch. "You were always like this," she said, arms crossed. "Quiet until you could throw something in our faces." I opened my purse, pulled out a slim white envelope and placed it on the desk. "Here's the transfer confirmation. My name. My initials. My routing number." Evelyn took it with slow fingers like it might burn. Kathy scoffed. "Congratulations. You paid a bill. Want a parade? I don't want anything." "Then why are you here?" I met her eyes, because I wanted to see if anyone remembered me before they needed me again. Brian walked in, then halfway through the tension, holding his phone like a shield. "What's going on?" No one answered. Evelyn was still staring at the paperwork like it rewrote her entire holiday table. I didn't know Brian started but stopped. I thought Mom already knew. "That's not what you said last time," I replied. "Voice even." His mouth opened, then shut. Kathy jumped in. "Oh, for God's sake. So what if he didn't tell her he was under pressure?" "We all were." I turned to her. "You're not defending him. You're defending the version of him that justifies how you've all behaved. I've always said you take things too personally. And you never take them personally enough." Richard stepped in. "Enough. All of you." But it wasn't angry. It was the kind of enough that comes when a man realizes he has no script left. I picked up my purse and walked back toward the living room. I could feel their eyes behind me. I didn't speed up. Lily was sitting on the stairs, drawing quietly on the back of a holiday card. She looked up when I passed. "Are you mad?" she asked. I stopped, crouched beside her. "No," I said, "just done." The house had quieted, not with peace, but with calculation. Evelyn disappeared into the kitchen, Richard into the study again. Kathy stood near the fireplace, nursing a second glass of wine, not saying a word. Brian had gone upstairs or outside or nowhere, no one asked. I walked to the sideboard and picked up the small ribbonless box I had brought with me. It felt heavier now. Or maybe I just knew what it meant more than they ever would. Lily sat on the floor, legs folded under her still drawing. Her crayons were down to stubs. When she noticed me standing nearby, she tilted her head. "This is for you," I said, kneeling to meet her at eye level. I handed her the box. She opened it carefully without the frantic rip of most children. Inside a sketchbook with thick cream paper, a set of blueprint pencils, and a folded letter with her name on it. Her eyes widened, not with greed, but with that rare kind of curiosity you don't learn you're born with it. "What's it for?" "For whatever you want to build," I said, "even if no one claps. Especially then." She nodded like she understood something she didn't yet have words for. Behind me, Evelyn's voice came tight but controlled. "What do you want from us, Martha?" I stood slowly, turned. Nothing, I said. "I wanted to see if you'd remember me before asking for something." Evelyn blinked once. Kathy said nothing. I looked back to Lily. She had already started drawing in the corner of the first page. A line, then a second. Then a shape that wasn't there before. Something she chose to make. Not because anyone told her to, but because she could. Back at the hotel, I didn't turn on the lights right away. The glow from the street lamps outside was enough. Snow still fell in soft, steady veils, blurring the rooftops of New Canaan. It looked like a painting, beautiful, but behind glass. My phone buzzed on the desk. One missed call from Evelyn, then another, then a voicemail. "Sweetheart, maybe we've been distant, but I'm proud of you. We're having breakfast here in the morning. Come join us. Your father's waiting." Another text, "I'd love to introduce you at the club. Your story is inspiring." I let the screen dim before opening a new message. "You can show me off if you're also willing to tell the truth. That I was overlooked. That I did this without your help. You don't get to rewrite it now." I hit send. A new notification. Kathy. Just a link. The future of wellness. Andrew Whitmore's vision for East Coast medicine. No message, no context. I replied, "You can be my sister, but not if you're competing with every breath you take." No response. From Brian, nothing. No call. No text. No half apology. His silence said everything he thought he couldn't say out loud. I pulled out the notebook I'd started earlier that week. Terms and Conditions, Martha Whitmore. I flipped to the last page. Read the final line I had written before boarding my flight. "I will never again let silence be mistaken for consent." Then I added one more, "and I will never confuse being needed with being loved." I signed it, dated it, folded the page, tucked it into the hotel desk drawer, and closed it. Let them reach. But this time I'd choose. 1 month later, I hosted dinner in a quiet room above a small gallery downtown. No chandeliers, no crystal. Just soft candlelight on ivory linen chairs that didn't match but were chosen with care, and windows that overlooked the city without needing to impress it. Elaine arrived first, carrying a bottle of red, and the same smile she wore the day we both got rejected from Yale, and laughed anyway. She didn't ask questions. She never had to. Lily came next, holding a manila envelope under one arm and wearing 2 mismatched barrettes in her hair. She handed me the envelope before sitting down. Inside was a drawing, her first attempt at a bridge. One side labeled me, the other Aunt Martha. "I didn't know how to draw the middle part yet," she said. "That's okay," I told her. "Bridges take time. And 2 sides." The girls from the STEM program arrived in pairs. They spoke in bursts about code, about cardboard prototypes, about nothing that needed translating. They took their seats around the table as if they'd always belonged. No one asked who funded it. No one needed to. At the end of the evening, I wrote one last line in my notebook. They once asked me for help without asking who I was. Now I help those who see me fully. Then I poured 2 glasses of wine, handed one to Elaine, and raised mine, not for a toast, but just enough to catch the light. No applause, no script, just room to be. Sometimes silence is louder than any wound. It doesn't scream. It doesn't bruise. It just leaves you off the list. Leaves your name out of the photo. Leaves a chair unmarked. Martha didn't come back to be clapped for. She didn't raise her voice demand to be seen or take revenge. She built. She endured. And when the moment came, she simply stood in the light of her own making. Not everyone gets an apology, but some of us still choose not to vanish. If you've ever had to pour your strength quietly into the cracks others left behind, if you've ever walked away, not because you were weak, but because no one offered a place to stay, then maybe you don't need to explain why this story feels like your story. You don't need to tell it all. Maybe just one moment you remember. Maybe just a word you wish they'd said. Leave it here, so someone else knows they weren't the only one left out, because we don't speak for attention. We speak so the silence ends somewhere.